So we have remote desktop services. I'm going to be introducing Belinda, Heiden Scott, and Guy Reams from Mount San Jacinto Community College. Belinda Heiden Scott is a RDS project leader and associate professor of business education and distance education coordinator as well. Guy Reams is an RDS project leader and associate professor of computer information systems and Microsoft networking at Mount San Jacinto. So without further ado, our next speakers.
Belinda, do you want to? Yeah, I think you can take it. All right, can you hear me okay? Good. My name's Guy Reams, as he just said, and Belinda and I started about 3 or 4 years.
Excuse me?
What's
I'm
that?
sorry. I think that the AV for the remote people are going to need you to be mic'd.
All right.
Yeah.
Entirely
that's
mic'd?
better, thanks.
I'll stand right here. So Belinda's going to bring up our system while I'm talking so you can see it. But we're here today to present an idea that we came up with several years ago. We were in this project where we were building a new building, and we had a large amount of infrastructure to put in this new building, compute infrastructure. We had to decide how we were going to do it. Well, many people started talking in committee about could we start considering VDI, or what is referred to as virtual desktop interface. So the idea was, could we present a virtual desktop to the student and start doing that with some kind of mechanism? So we started thinking about it, and we started building a solution. That solution did not work, and I'll talk a little bit why. So in our district, in our college district, we have many challenges. There's a huge digital divide at our college. There are many people that have access to the internet and to computing resources. And those people that have it have a lot of it. So there's certain communities where they have FiOS connections to their homes. So there are many students that actually can have over 100 meg internet connections, in some cases 125 meg internet connections to their home. Then we have people in communities that are very poorly served, where DSL services may be available, but if they can afford it, they're lucky. And secondly, that DSL service is somewhat inadequate. A lot of times the IDSL speeds are pretty low. So we have this huge divide between students that have a lot of bandwidth and students that don't. So how do we deal with that? Well, our first attempt at this was to create a virtual desktop infrastructure using VMware. VMware at the time, this was 5 years ago, had a product called Lab Manager. And the idea was that we would create a server platform, and we would run several blade servers, and we would instantiate a new Windows desktop to every incoming student, and we'd allow that student to check out that desktop so they could use it for a period of time. When they log back on, their same settings would be available to them. Well, unfortunately, that started to fail, and the reason it had to fail was because of licensing. The amount of licensing costs and hardware upkeep to get to that point was prohibitive to our college. In addition, the infrastructure to get to the point of providing the students with enough storage and providing the students with enough resources to be able to use a desktop, we could only get up to about 200 simultaneous students at one time. And we had a population of 3,000 online students that were going to use this, and we wanted to extend this to the in-classroom environment. So one day we were in a committee meeting that we formed, and we had a couple of student participants. One of the students said, well, have you tried Windows Remote Desktop Services? And I said, well, I've heard about it, but I didn't think it was that good. Well, the student said, well, it's actually improved a little bit. You ought to look at it. So we set up a little lab environment. The student demonstrated it to us. And next thing you know, we converted our entire virtual desktop infrastructure over to Windows RDS. Our campus agreement with Microsoft saved us a lot of money on the licensing renewals, and our amount of storage requirements using modern deduplication methodology on our storage system reduced dramatically. Today, we're able to present the students with a desktop with all of our applications and also provide them with storage so they can store their files. The mantra to us has become the ability to deliver the exact classroom experience in the classroom to wherever they happen to be, whether it be at home or at a coffee shop or on the run or even just sitting in the hallway on our campus. So our goal is to be able to provide that desktop experience to them so that they don't have to purchase the applications, or they don't have to have the compute resources to support running those applications. What's happening now is through a browser, the student can log on with their username that they are used to using. We use Blackboard, which a lot of schools do. So they can log on with their username, they authenticate, and it gives them access to all of the applications that are available on our system. They do not have to have these applications running locally on their machine. It instantiates the application and runs it for them. For our advanced classes, they are able to gain access to a remote desktop where they can run the remote desktop and then gain access to other resources within the college's network without having to provide the students with VPN access or anything complicated like that. So we've seen a dramatic improvement in the ability for students to gain remote access anytime or anywhere to applications we provide them without licensing overhead, which has been a huge issue for us. Some of the software is licensing controlled, and what we do is we simply control the number of students that have access to it, and therefore we're able to keep our licensing guidelines in check. Another huge advantage is for instructors like me who use utilities all the time, little software packages that I need them to use in class, whether it be our nutrition class, we had a health class that had a nutrition program, whether it be our economics professor that had a small little math program he wanted them to use. We're able to deliver these applications just in time when we need it without them having to worry about downloading it to their machine. They can simply run it through the remote desktop interface. Are you having authenticated?
I'm going to try a different browser.
I don't know if Firefox will work. It won't. So are you having a problem authenticating through their network? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, there you go. we should boot up we won't have time, but we could boot up my laptop. So anyway, just to give you a couple of ideas on what we've tried to do. The student, when they're in the classroom, they log on to a desktop. And the desktop is presented to them, and they're given a My Documents directory. The My Documents has all their files in it. When they're remote and they log on to the remote desktop services, they are also given a My Documents directory. That My Documents directory is the same location as it would be online as it is in the remote application. So as an instructor, I'll deliver to them an activity that they need to achieve, and I'll say, work on this in class, or we'll work on it together. And then when they leave to go home, they bring up the remote desktop and the application's sitting in the same state that it was when they were working in the classroom. They can also save files that way. In addition, we've achieved some other advantages, such as the ability to run a browser interface within the remote desktop that's actually faster connecting to our online content portal system than it would be if they're working at home. So we've not only gained an advantage to the student that has a low bandwidth scenario, but we've also given them a better, more consistent way to access applications. More importantly, with today's bandwidth, we can run this entire thing. Actually, if you want to just boot up my laptop, we can probably get to it. Just grab my laptop out of my bag if we have time. Yeah, we'll just boot up the other laptop because I know it'll work on that. So one of the real key advantages has been as an instructor. So as an instructor, I want them to accomplish certain activities. So I'll tell them, here, I want you to go through step 1 through 10 of an activity. Well, in the past, step 1 through 10 of an activity could be completely different in their home environment, or in the college lab environment, or in the tutor center, or in the classroom. So they'll always get confused on steps 1 through 4 because it looks different, or acts different, or behaves different. This way, I have an environment that I have total control over. So when they log on and they attempt to access the resources, the interface looks identically the same. So the application comes up with the same toolbar settings, the same profile settings, everything is identical. So when they go through my tutorials, the tutorials are identically the same as they would be in the classroom or at home. So there's been some significant advantages for our system as we've done it. Now another...
I'll let you log in.
Yeah, you better log on. Belinda, why don't you share with them some examples of how you've used it in the classroom?
In the classroom, like Guy had said, we have the digital divide, students that have technology and don't. So this way in the classroom, everyone has the technology, whether they're doing homework at home or they're in the class in a lab setting doing their work. And they log in, the students go ahead and log in, they authenticate with the system, and it opens up any software that they would ever need for that class, which has been pre-assigned to the desktop's services prior to the start of the class. And then they have their own storage, so they can store their work there with them. They can then leave class, go to another class, authenticate again through an internet connection into the same personal desktop, and have all their work there. So their work follows them from classroom to classroom and from home, or if they're on vacation in New York or across the country, they always have access to their work. See, what else can I share with you? One of the things in building the system, when we looked at going ahead and implementing the RDS and it met our needs, we had to educate our faculty to use the services, and then also educate our students to get comfortable and use of the services. And we had different departments and programs wanting to join us to add their software to the RDS so their students could access it. So we came up with a committee, which was really helpful in sustaining our program as well as building it out. We, being a community college, we made that a committee with students, faculty, administration, and staff. So we would look at going forward and making decisions and adding different departments and programs as a group decision. And I think that took us from, we started at the beginning with it, which is just our vision, and then thanks to a student who recommended the RDS to us, developed that, was probably a year and a half, got that going, and then once we became live and we started using it, that sustainability of the committee has pretty much brought us where we are today. And Guy's going to talk a little bit today and where our vision is, where we'd like to go.
So as you can see right here is what the remote desktop, if you've never seen the connection broker that Microsoft RDS provides to the student, this is accessing college resources now through our firewall, and there was all we had to use was a web browser with simple authentication to get to this point. And I'm using a user account that has access to everything in this case. So as you can see here, we're successfully running the entire Adobe suite remotely. We're running the entire Microsoft suite remotely. We're running all the Microsoft Advanced Expression tools remotely. We're also running our Visual Studio environment for those of you who teach computer science type programs. That all runs remotely. And we also have various other programs such as Peachtree Accounting or QuickBooks and many other different programs, a lot of little small tools that we're able to use. And then finally, as you can see here, here's the My Documents directory I was telling you about. When they open this, they're actually able to see all of the files they're working on in the actual classroom as well as working remotely. And we give them so much storage, and we allow them provisions to add storage as needed. As you can see here, we also have a remote desktop icon. This actually opens up into a desktop that they can run. If they need to access other resources within the college, they're able to do so. We have some private resources you can't access from the internet, but maybe there's some advanced things that some of our advanced computing science people are using that we need to access that they can access through the remote desktop screen. So this gives you a kind of a visual of what that looks like for the student's perspective. When you run an application, such as, I'll just run a simple one like, let me see here, we'll run, how come I'm not seeing Word on there?
Oh, it's right down here.
Help me out. Oh, there it is.
Oh, to the right. There
Yeah, I got it. So they have to authenticate to the application. Once they've done so, this won't happen again, but once they've authenticated, then Microsoft Word will launch. The only difficult thing we're having is the authentication process, the way we're doing it, takes a little longer on the first attempt. So you'll notice as we're talking here, this will take, the first time they load an application, it takes a few minutes to load. That's the only thing we haven't been able to get past because of some firewall checking that we're doing. But what we're planning to do in the future is Microsoft just released this Remote FX ability, which allows us to run multimedia applications over this system as well. So with the appropriate licensing, they can run a remote desktop that actually runs programs like Maya or Softimage or one of those types of programs will actually run quite effectively with 3D rendering in the remote desktop environment. So we're actually seeing great improvement to that, and as bandwidth speeds increase, we'll be able to do even more of that as we go. I'll let Belinda show you the creating of something and saving it to my documents. The other area of improvement is we're actually talking about working with another provider to provide the students with a small thin client device or a Pano device, a little box that's like this that they'll be able to rent or lease from the college or even buy, and then we'll deliver it to their school pre-prepared. They'll boot it up at their home, connect it to their router or whatnot, and it will give them this entire interface without having a computing resource at home. So for people who have no computing at all, remember, once again, we have this huge digital divide in our college, we'll be able to provide them with a unit, hook it to a monitor of some sort, and they'll be able to run this entire environment straight from their home without having to have purchased extra resources. So we're actually working on trying to make those types of improvements as well. As you can see here, she just created a document, and then she can save it to My Documents. Now, the My Documents is not on the local computer, this laptop. The My Documents is actually on the server. So if Belinda now were to go to the college, sit down in one of our labs, and open up the document, then she would see the same files residing in her My Documents directory.
So I just went ahead and closed the document, which was saved into My Documents. I logged out of Microsoft Word. So if the student left and went to another class and wanted to open up that document again, they would just authenticate back into the system, open up Microsoft Word.
I think you double-clicked.
Yeah, I did.
Here,
There we go. Authenticate back into the system and then open up Word, and they can open up their document. What we decided to do, let's see, so if I've got my document open, I go to open, and here is my documents, and the file is called test1 down here, and I can open that file, and here I am. We do allow the students to save all of their work on their drive, and then we clean that drive out once a year after commencement.
The other enhancement is we're now working with cloud providers to come up with a way to create a link inside their redirected My Documents that links to cloud storage. So Microsoft Live and a few others give us a certain amount of space for students to use free of charge. And what we're doing is linking that to My Documents now. So students have extra capacity to transfer files around. But that's an enhancement we haven't released yet. But that's coming up because even though we have deduplication and all these methods to reduce the amount of storage in our system, as the number of users increase, the amount of storage we require obviously exponentially increases as well. However, we've been able to do pretty good by deleting the files once a year. So every year after commencement, we wipe the system clean, give the students a couple of weeks. We actually don't wipe it. We back it up to an archive, and then we wait for a month because we always get the inevitable student that forgets, and we get a request and we have it, right? So that happens quite frequently. But we are able to do so pretty easily. We have some automatic archiving technology that allows it to happen. And so we're able to accommodate most of those requests. Click on the remote desktop icon right here so they can see what that looks like. If you've never seen this, if you click on remote desktop here, you'll see it opens up into, I'll log on. You'll see that it opens up into an actual desktop that they can use. And this is what they would look like if they ran it straight from a computer that we provided to them. Does anybody have any questions about what we've presented today so far? Yes, go ahead.
Did you change the server backend to migrate from VDI? Did you have to change the server backend to migrate from a VDI infrastructure to the Microsoft desktop?
No. Actually, the way it worked out is the resources required by VDI Lab Manager were a lot more than remote desktop services. Now, since that time, we've added, but it's really become an equation of just simply adding compute. So we add a blade to accommodate more users. With VDI, we were able to handle 250 users at its max development. By using remote desktop service, which is basically instantiating a session rather than an actual virtual desktop, we were able to go to 1,000 users initially, and now we're up to 1,500 users. We could handle 1,500 simultaneous users at one time at this point. Our numbers, by the way, we have a population base of about 17,000 students. Is that where we're at? So we have a population base of 17,000 students. This gets published actively to 5,000. So 5,000, although all 17,000 can access it, 5,000 we think know about it. And so out of that 5,000, we get about 142. Our average is right now is 142 simultaneous logons at any given second. So this is important math to know when you build a system out, to know what your simultaneous logons will be. So our peak logon time during finals week is about 140 to 150 simultaneous users. Now recently we've started to go to the classroom, which means that our IT techs have gotten really keen on this idea. They no longer have to deploy new applications to the desktop in the classrooms. And also to the labs. Now they can just simply provide a link. When they load it, it loads remote desktop services. The authentication is automatic because it's within our network, and they're able to run the application. This now gets rid of the wars between versions of applications. I don't know if you have this at your facility, but we have battles that rage between whether or not we're going to go to one version of Office or the next version or whatnot. Those are gone now because we can present both of them. And we can give a virtual link. When you run it, it runs off one server or another server, providing them with access to a different version of the software. So we're able to allow the enterprising faculty to go forward with the new version of something, while the ones that have got set labs and tutorials can stick with the older versions. So that's more than what you asked, but you had a good question. But the infrastructure for VDI was far more than this, because this shares sessions. It doesn't instantiate a separate individual unique desktop to each user, which was too much for us to be able to handle. You're seeing right here what the remote desktop looks like. This is actually the desktop I used to teach with at the college. So I'm not a very organized person sometimes. So I've got sporadic desktop icons, but all of the files that I've been using this last couple of weeks for my class are sitting here. I teach a Cisco class and a systems analysis class. You can see the content there. But this is basically the content from my class. And this is the exact way my desktop looks at the college as it looks right here. So when I remote in to prepare stuff for my class, I can work on the files right there, save them to, and this is why I save them to the desktop. Then when I get to the college, I bring up my desktop and the files are sitting right there, and I just simply launch into them to teach the class. What's nice about it is the students are doing it the same identical way, is they're logging onto their desktop. Now, one of the things we're really trying to do is bring the desktop to the student. So the goal is to have the student be able to synchronously work with us at the college. So using some of our online conferencing tools, I'm actually teaching using this interface in the classroom as it's being recorded, and students at home, if they are at home, participate in exactly the same way, using exactly the same interface, seeing the exact same files that I'm seeing as I'm teaching both student in the classroom and student at home. This is the way these new students, what I call the digital natives, they like to do it this way. They expect it this way. They expect it to be easy, they expect it to be uniform, and they want it to be just in time and right at their fingertips. And this is a call to action that us faculty that have been doing it for a while have to try to meet. And so using this technology, we've been able to at least get somewhat close. So any other further questions?
Speaking of trying to meet their needs, the students of today, we did build in a help section for the RDS for students logging in for the first time or using the services for the first time in a classroom. And you have to log out, and it's on the outside once you log out. So we did go ahead. We'll show you what that looks like, and that we have some question Q&As. We have some. They can look and read with some screenshots and how to log in. Most often students forget the / or /, which one to use in the ITS prior to their username. And and we have a video as well. So this is very helpful to our students.
Yeah, the next big coup is for us to convince the college to do a single sign-on throughout the entire institution, and we're fighting that battle now. But the other, we also formed a committee. We call it the RDS committee at the college, and we have participants from various different academic groups that participate in how to make this better. The reason we did that was to keep securing funding from year to year by having as many people addicted to using this as possible. And the funding by addiction model has worked out pretty good for us. So and now they can't imagine life without it now. And so because of that, suddenly money becomes available when we need it to license or to buy new equipment or whatnot. We even have career programs like our automotive program putting their automotive manuals up here now just because it's easier for the students to access.
We also have health science. They went ahead and put an analysis up here that you can log in and yourself and do a health analysis with your diet. We started with funding, to give you a little background on funding, with we're in career and technical education, so we were able to use Perkins funding. It does meet the requirements for the Perkins grant. However, Perkins grant funding is only obtainable, I think it's 3 years, and at that time then it needs to become sustainable within the college. And that transition, we've made that transition, so the college is fully financing us now.
So anyway, this is just a great example of using very common tools. Microsoft RDS is a simple tool. The setup on this didn't take all that long. There is a little bit of expertise when it gets to storing the files, such as a storage area network and the compute resources to handle it. But once we were able to get this through and get this set up, Microsoft already provides this in Windows Server. So this was not a complicated technology, nor was it an expensive technology to license. Just to give you an idea, in order to allow students unlimited access requires what is called the Remote Desktop Connector License Agreement. Under our campus agreement, that cost us like $300 a year, which was rather amazing compared to what we were paying for VDI with VMware. Now, to be honest with you, VDI VMware was better because we could allow Macintosh, people using Apple OS, in a little bit better. We can still allow people using Apple machines into this, but there's some special loopholes they got to jump through to make it work. So there are some limitations to this that VMware VDI was much better at, but the licensing costs to run VMware VDI were prohibitive to our institution. So if I had the choice, I'd probably choose the more advanced virtualization mechanisms that are out there. But with this, I'm at least able to touch more students and provide more access to more people with the dollars that we have available to spend. So it was a key advantage for us to be able to do so. So, you know, this has not been consuming all that many resources. The hard part has been the advanced guys, the people teaching classes that require a lot of resources. They've been the bigger challenge. But this is another reason why doing it by committee has always been helpful, because there's always exceptions to the rules we set up, and we have to have a way to formulate and decide on that. So, good. Anything else you want to throw out, or I think we're done?
No, I think so, unless anyone has any questions. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.